Hey, what's good, YouTube? I'm Inferno, and welcome to another devlog on Future Warfare. We are up to number 15 now. We're getting up there. And if you're new here and don't know what Future Warfare is, let me explain real quick. Future Warfare is a 2D strategy game I'm making in Unity. You can either play as the Galaxians or the Dreadnaughts. And each of these factions have their own unique units that you can purchase to battle against the enemy. And the way you win this game is by destroying the enemy player's base before they destroy yours. So in this video we're going to update the background / environment for the game. I kind of wanted to switch to kind of like a night scene, so that it's a bit darker and the lasers and lights contrasted to the darkness better. Alright, so before we create the background, I wanted to create the turret for the Dreadnought side. So I just start off with a simple sketch, and now I'm just filling in that sketch into different sections. And I'm just playing around with the colors and just seeing what kind of looks best. And once I've done that, I'm just kind of trimming it down, trying to give it a more sleek form. And once I've done that, I'm just shading it, trying to add a little bit of a reflection to it. Now that we have the sprite or graphic created for the turret, we're going to import it into the game. And once I have it imported, I'm going to move the sprite right on top of the tower right next to the Dreadnought base. And we're going to add in a box collider and make that a trigger. And this trigger will activate once one of the Galaxians walk within it, and this will be the range of the turret, essentially. So in my last devlog, I created the turret for the Galaxian side. So I'm just basically copying the code that I used for the Galaxian turret and renaming the variables. But yeah, if you want a deeper explanation of this code and how it's working, check out my last devlog video. Cool, so now we have the turret aiming at the correct Galaxian unit and firing. However, the bullets are pretty small and slow. That really doesn't give the visual impact that I want. So to address this, I'm going to create a new laser sprite. And for the colors, I decided to go with a red in the front and with like kind of the back trailing. I also increased the speed of the laser when it is fired. I think it looks much better with that adjustment. Alright, let's move on to starting the background. So for the sketch, I created a horizontal white line to represent where the UI is going to be overlaying the background. So what this means is that the background's only going to be visible above the white line. I created two more horizontal white lines to represent where the mountain ranges are going to be. So within these bounds, I'm sketching out how the mountains are going to roughly look. After thinking about the rough draft for a bit, I decided I wanted to do a city for each of the factions on each side. So on the left is going to be the Dreadnought City, which is what I'm doing a rough draft of at the moment. And then on the right side, it's going to be the Galaxian City. So I'm just drawing a kind of like tower / turret And I'm going to draw a few buildings closer to the Dreadnought base and the viewer. And also going to be drawing kind of like a cityscape in the background behind these closer buildings. I imported what I have so far of the ref draft of the new background just to see how it would look in game, because the Dreadnought and Galaxian base are going to be kind of overlaying it, so I just wanted to see if the Dreadnought base was going to be covering any of the rough draft that I was drawing of the cityscape. I've made the mistake of forgetting about the horizontal white line that was going to represent where the background began. So I just have to kind of rearrange what I have so far of the rough draft and move it all up. Now that I'm pretty satisfied with the rough draft of the Dreadnought City, I'm going to start doing the Galaxian side. And I kind of just didn't like the first rough draft of any of the buildings for the Galaxian side, so I just started trying to do different buildings and just playing around with that and seeing what looks best to me. A lot of the Galaxian buildings for the first rough draft looked way too big and wide, so I just scaled them down. As I was sketching out these Galaxian buildings, I was trying to make a conscious effort to make the architecture look different from the Dreadnoughts. Since I'm still a noob at art, it was pretty hard for me to come up with different designs for the buildings. So I kind of just like random shapes at first and then started building off of that. That's probably why you see me changing designs for the buildings multiple times. Once I felt like the city was dense enough, I decided to go over the mountains again with a more detailed sketch. And just trying to make some of the mountains have some like jagged edges. And once I finished that, I wanted to make kind of like a canyon in the center. Whew, now that we have the final draft finished, we're going to start filling in those base colors. I'm going to use the lasso tool to help me do that, with the mountain specifically. And if you don't know what the lasso tool is, it's basically a selection tool. So anything within those bounds I can fill in with color. I wanted to have the scene set in a sunset, so I added a little bit of orange to the bottom of the sky and have the sky get progressively darker towards the top. So for the bottom, I wanted to add a little bit of variation of color to the ground and also add in a few rocks. When I imported the new updated background into the game, I realized I forgot again about the white horizontal line. So I have to move up the ground again and rescale it because half of it wouldn't be visible in game. Alright, so we're going to shift our focus right back over to the mountains. So I'm just highlighting parts of the mountain where the light would be shining on the most. And honestly, in hindsight, I really had no like idea of where the light was coming from. I was kind of doing this all at random. So yeah, honestly, I should have had an idea of where the light source was coming from when I was shading and highlighting the different parts of the mountain. But yeah, it's all good. You also may have noticed I added a little lava and snow to just add some variety to the background so that it's just not all giant rocks on top of each other. Yeah, it's pretty much more the same, just doing variations of lighting on the side of the mountains. And on the far right, I wanted to do kind of like a base in the background. So I just added that in with minimal detail for now, and then probably later I'll add some more detail. On the side of the mountain behind the Galaxian City, I wanted to add a big doorway to a bunker. And this is kind of going to be like a Galaxian bunker that contains their vehicles, such as tanks and aircrafts. After finally adding some more detail to the sides of the mountains, I realized that the bunker door was pretty big for how far away it would be. Like, if the scale was correct and how far it was prospectively, it is just massive. Which is what I'm aiming for, but not that massive. Alright, next up on the list is the Dreadnought City. We're going to start with the turret. And since the Dreadnought's theme colors are black and red, that's going to be the main colors I'm using for the Dreadnought City. And for this turret, I did a lot of experimenting. I changed its design a lot as I was working on it, and just playing around with various designs. Yeah, so as I was working on the building to the left, I don't know, I just didn't like the way it looked, so I decided to try and duplicate it to make it wider, and then I kind of just made it into like a laser mining facility, and so just added a tower to the left of it. And I kind of changed what I was going for to the right building. I was originally going to make like a solar panel farm, but I was like, no, I'm just going to make this into another facility. And now we're just adding in the cityscape in the background. And for each of the skyscrapers, I stuck to about the same color, just slight variations of the same color so you can distinguish between each of the towers. I really like the tall, skinny skyscraper with the cellular tower on top. I think it looks really cool with especially with the lava flowing in the background. I'm also adding in some red roads. I think I want the roads to like have red panels at the bottom, so that's why they're a bright red color. I'm also now adding in some red windows to our towers. I'm just going over adding a little glow effect to it. And for each of the skyscrapers and towers, I wanted to do a different design for each of the windows so that it just doesn't look so plain. And I'm also doing a slight variations of red so that it's not all the same color as well. And yes, now that we have windows and lights added to the city, it's starting to look more lively. Although, I guess that's not the right word to describe the Dreadnoughts. And some of the surfaces of the buildings, I'm adding in the reflection of the light, which makes the buildings look more dynamic and the lights more believable. I decided to take away the eye shape on the turret, and I kind of did like a slightly see-through metallic look, which I think came out pretty interesting. Cool, so let's start working on the Galaxian City. as I was starting to create this building here, I don't know, I thought the structure of it was just a bit too wide, so I decided to break it up into 2 parts. And then I wanted to bring it back to a building right behind. I also wanted to create some paneled roads for the Galaxian City. These ones being a blue color. Or kind of like a bluish green, right? And I'm just creating this tower in front with some receiver antennas on top. Alright, so this dome over to the left is actually like a storage for this glowing blue liquid. And this liquid is used as energy to power the city and the Galaxians' weapons. I decided to change the building right next to the dome to a turret. Now we're just filling in the city in the background. And to this building, I'm just adding a little bit of a glow effect coming from the windows. And at this point, I'm starting to feel pretty good about the Galaxian City. It definitely has a different vibe than the Dreadnaughts. Now I'm just going back and adding a glow effect around the perimeter of the little lake of mysterious blue liquid. And I'm just adding some lights to the side of the turret tower with some cool patterns. And just adding some more detail to the pyramid shaped building, as well as lights at the bottom of it, going around the perimeter. And at this point, we're just adding windows to the buildings and some final details to the back of the Galaxian City. Sweet, we're pretty much done now with the backgrounds. Now that we have both cities about done, we just need to add some detail to the ground in the center of the background. And I'm kind of just doing variations between a purple color and a slight purplish red. And now we're just trying to add some detail to the canyon, which has been proven to be extremely difficult for me because I couldn't find any reference images that had this kind of perspective on a canyon. Here I'm just throwing down some colors, with the colors being brighter closer to the city and the pool of glowing liquid. And once I have all the colors thrown down, I'm just smoothing them out using a softer brush. I also went back and darkened the canyon a little bit. Yeah, so pretty much at this point, I'm just doing some final touches. Yes, I'm so stoked to finally be done with the background. So here's a comparison between both backgrounds. This is the old background that I've been using. And here's the new background. I'd love to hear what you think of the new background. I think switching to a night/evening setting is the right call. And I also like the cities being in the background. But yeah, I would love to hear what you think. So let me know in the comments down below. Hey, thank you so much for checking out my devlog on Future Warfare. If you watched the whole video, you are a real one. I really do appreciate it. And yeah, have a great rest of your day or night. Peace.